There we go.
Well and truly in. Okay, good afternoon. Are we afternoon yet?
Yes, we are.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon, Libby.
And hi to people in Sussex and people in St Michael's.
Hi.
Hello. And people in Tamworth. Hi there too. Okay, well, a little while back I read you some work from the novel of Must-Have Story, which was published some time ago. And you might remember that I read to you a very dramatic scene. And at the end of that conversation, we set a task for you to write a dramatic scene that incorporates the use of a coping mechanism to help the protagonist to deal with or overcome their situation. And I suggested that one way to do that is to write short sentences, to get the character's feelings and emotions coming out, and to get perhaps rhetorical questions. Now, who knows what a rhetorical question is? Yes?
Asking yourself questions.
Asking yourself a question, but even more importantly...
It's a question that doesn't have to be answered.
Yes, you don't have to answer it. It's like those questions that you might throw out into the universe, into the cosmos, and you don't actually have an answer to them. When we talk about a coping mechanism, can you remember the coping mechanism that Must-Have used in the story of Must-Have Story? Remember, she's in a truck, escaping across Afghanistan, and they are stopped by the Taliban.
We're counting backwards from 500.
Now, I don't know if people have heard that. Or we need to have that in a louder voice.
Exactly.
Big loud voice again.
She was counting backwards from 100.
That's right. She's desperately afraid that if they're back there hiding in the truck is uncovered, that she will be shot, as with her mother and her younger brother and sister. And in her head, she's counting backwards from 100. She's also doing the rhetorical questions, because she's asking herself, will they know we're here? Will they know about the time my grandfather was killed? So there's a whole lot of things going on inside her mind. Now, I've had a look at some of the writing. I wasn't able to see every single piece that was sent in, but I've had a look at quite a few pieces, and I'm really pleased to say that for most of you, and that's the people in all of the schools I'm referring to, most of you built a strong and dramatic situation by using those short sentences, and most of you used some kind of coping mechanism to try and get your character through that situation, just the way I suggested we should. And perhaps the best way to do it now is if I call upon some of you to read some of your work so that everybody can hear it. I've grouped the ones that have come in to show different things. For example, in the first group that we're going to hear, these are students whose writing showed a really strong and dramatic opening. So the scene itself was strong and dramatic at the very beginning. Now the first one I'd like us to hear came from one of the students at Sussex English. Is Tom Gray there at Sussex?
Yes, Tom's here.
Tom, could you read us? Tom, could you read the first half of your piece called The Worst Holiday in the History of the Event. Read down to the line where you say, I better say my prayers.
Cool. That's actually Lara's piece, so I'll get Lara to
Oh,
read
I'm
that.
sorry. Tom, you're going to be next. Get Lara to go first. Sorry, Tom.
And the first half is up until when you have to say your prayers. Big loud voice.
The wind thrashes against our tent. What if the dam overflows? We'll drown. Or, what if the wind blows our tent over and we're left homeless for the night? We'll freeze. Don't think about it. Just don't think about it. Everything's going to be alright, isn't it?
Okay. The line that follows that is the one, I better say my prayers. So that's a good, strong, dramatic opening, Lara. I particularly like the rhetorical questions that you used. What if the dam overflows? What if the wind blows our tent over and we're left homeless for the night? And then she sort of talks to herself to try and bolster her courage. Don't think about it. Just don't think about it. I thought that was a really good type piece of writing, Lara. Now, while we're at, we'll go then to Tom at Sussex Inlet. Tom, could you read us the opening of yours down to the line, "Where's my dad?" And again, it's just because it's such a strong and dramatic opening.
Didn't crash smash, straight to the freezing hard snow. I'm nearly knocked out, sliding down the freezing mountain, going over bump after bump after bump. Will I stop? Where will I stop? What did Dad say to do again? Was it put my arms out and tip over? I stopped with roaring pain all over.
Right, thank you, Tom. Again, you know, there's a good, strong, dramatic opening. Boom, crash, smash. Each a word, you put commas there. You could even put exclamation marks after each of those, so you don't even have sentences. Here I've said short sentences, or one-word statements make even stronger lines. He also has got a couple of those rhetorical questions. Will I ever stop? Where will I stop? And he's also gone one step further, and I'm going to talk about this in a moment, where we have the coping mechanism. What was it Dad said? Was it put my arms out or flip over? He's trying to use something that his father's told him to help him to try and concentrate or to recover his situation. Thanks very much, Tom. Okay, so we've had our first couple of pieces there. Tommy at St Michael's. Can we go over to St Michael's now? At St Michael's in Stanmore.
Hello.
Hello. Hi there.
Hi.
Do we have Tommy there who wrote the story Crash? Being Crash?
Read it for me.
Can we just have the first paragraph, Tom?
Okay.
Loud.
I smell burning. Bad burning. I look out the window. The turbine's on fire. I start tapping. My therapist told me that. It calms me. I think, how did I get here? It started when I was just going to see my mom. I got on the plane and just had a bag of nuts and lost Family Guy until I was tired. I quickly drifted off to sleep. I woke to a burning smell, and here I am now.
Thanks very much, Tommy. Notice that I smell burning, bad burning. It's a strong, dramatic opening line. And then I look out the window. The turbine's on fire. These short, single statements that build attention. And of course, he also looks at one of the actions of how you have a coping mechanism by saying, I start tapping. My therapist told me that I should do that. Okay? So, we've had three really good, strong, dramatic openings. From there, I want to move on to another thing, which is the use of repetition. Now, some editors, when I'm writing, if you've got a word which you use over and over again, they might say to you, well, cut that out, you don't need repetition. But sometimes repetition is really useful because of the way in which it helps to build attention. And the first example I want to put in also comes from St Michael's. Is Callum there?
Yes, say yes.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah, well,
Yes.
just a moment, Callum, and I'll just work out which piece we want from you. Could you read us the part he would have to take his chances? So it's sort of like the second, the end of the first paragraph. And I want you to notice how often Callum uses the word he to begin a sentence.
Can you read?
Yeah. Okay. He was running for dear life, stepping and dodging people. He thought ahead. He thought taking back streets. No, he said, I need a place with tons of people. That's it, the main
And now,
street.
Callum, could we go back a bit further, just because I'd like to hear a few more of that. Could you go back to he would have to take his chance?
He would have to take his chance. He made a run for it. A shoe shop was the worst place to be in, with no aisles. He was out of the shoe shop, but the cops were getting him. He was counting back from 10 over and over again. Hordes of people. He was running. Oh, yep.
Okay, it goes on to he was running for dear life, he thought ahead, he thought taking the back street. So almost every sentence in that paragraph begins with he. And as I said, in some situations, editors and writers will tell you not to use repetition, but other times it works really well to build up a sense of the drama of a situation. Okay. Similarly, we've got Jasmine from Sussex Inlet. Jasmine, are you there?
Jasmine is here, but she would like me to read it for her.
Okay, could we have the second last paragraph beginning, I try to fight, and just notice the number of times she begins a sentence with the word I.
Okay. I try to fight against the current. I am really tired. I am struggling to breathe. I am really scared. I am hardly staying afloat. I am going under the water. I think I have swallowed a lot of water. Under and under I go.
I think that's a terrific short piece of writing. The use of the word I, building all of these fears and dramas that are happening with her, and then at the end changing it so that it's not a sentence beginning with I, but rather under and under I go, like a dramatic conclusion. So I thought that was a lovely piece, and thanks very much for reading that one for us. Okay, now I want to move on to the coping mechanisms that people chose. Remember in Must-Have Story it was counting backwards from 100? Well, we've got a couple of pieces here. I'd like Brianna here at Gummy and Bay. Which one's Brianna? Oh, right in front. Yeah, can we get your piece? Very good. Yeah, can you read the piece?
Yep.
Can we get Brianna the camera on her?
Yep.
Turn around and face with me. And let's swap places so that you don't have that on me. Oh. Cover my face. First of all, just tell briefly what's happening in your story.
I've just been
Up to the microphone.
I've just been taken to hospital in an ambulance, and I don't really know what happened. The fear of what might happen next followed me whole. My only way to cope with everything was to leave my body and think happy thoughts. New York, New York, think of New York. It didn't work. Was I sick, like the other children? Would I have to stay here and get dripped?
Okay, so immediately trying to put your brain into some totally other space. Is there any reference to New York in other parts of your story?
No, not really.
That would be a good thing to do if you were to do a second draft. If you're going to go out of your mind and or out of your consciousness and think about New York, then if you had some reference to New York at some other stage, that might add some of the drama to it. The next one I wanted to have a look at was written also by someone here in Gymea Bay. Is it Larissa? Which one's Larissa?
That's just right.
Yeah. I think you can read the whole piece. And Larissa, what deals with what the situation is in your story?
Oh, well, I'm in the shopping centre and I want to get something and I can't find my mum. I was running back to where Mum was last. Where was she? Had she been taken? I raced through the shop trying to find her. I was trying to keep calm, but I just couldn't. Breathing in, out, aisle after aisle, section after section. Still can't find her. Heartbeat racing faster and faster, like a race car zooming to the finish line. In, out, in, out. Would I ever see Mum again?
Thank you. Thank you. And I particularly like the way that she tries to use her breathing as the way of coping with this dangerous situation. But of course, the more she says in, out, the more dramatic and the more exciting the story becomes. And you notice too that she used that about halfway through and she used it again at the end. So it's again that thing I said earlier about repetition. Use repetition to work for you. It's not always a negative thing. Okay. interior monologue is another one I wanted to talk about. That's the one where you start to go through what's going on in your head. And the example I wanted to use here was Troy. Yeah, which I think is... Yeah. I'd go from the top down to... the whole of that section. Yeah. Can you just tell the group where you are and what's happening?
Okay, I'm buried. Tell me a bit, mate. Okay. Yes, I'm buried in the underground in a doozy. So, yeah. I pushed into the darkness and I hit a barrier. I was stuck, tied up, and claustrophobic. One flash of sunlight shone through the wood. What, would someone find me? Will I suffocate? I was breathing faster and faster. I pushed my lips towards the crack and took a deep breath of fresh air. I heard a pair of feet tapping on the ground above me. I was breathing too fast to scream. I tried to slow down my breathing down to one loud scream. Help! I started to get tears running down my cheek. There was no answer. It became too hard to breathe. I passed out.
Thanks, Troy. And again, there were the questions and trying to go inside his own head, trying to control the circumstance by his breathing. So there's quite a lot of different parts of what we were talking about last week that came out in Troy's piece. And the final one that I wanted to hear this afternoon was from Tamworth. Is Amberly there?
Yeah?
Amberly, could you read us the third last paragraph of your piece? And Amberly's piece is called Tiger Trouble. Can you just tell the group what the situation is and then read us that piece beginning, I watched the tiger? So what's happening in your story?
I'm lost in a jungle and I'm in the way of a tiger.
Excuse me, Emily, could you sit down? We've lost your face off the screen. If you sit down, we'll be able to get you on something. Yeah, that's better. Thanks. So you're lost where?
I watched it. I'm lost in a jungle.
Uh-huh.
And I'm in the way of a tiger.
Okay.
I watched the tiger. I'll creep closer. My throat is dry and my hairs are standing on end. All I can see is the tiger's black and orange stripes and its jaw opened wide. I can hear its throat growl. I feel terrified. My mouth is dry, as though it is filled with sand. I want to escape, but it is impossible with no trees available to hide behind it at all. My hands and forehead are in a sweat.
Thank you. Thank you. And I chose that one because I think it's a good example. When you're trying to describe something that's really fearful, go into your senses. We hear that I watch, I can see, I can hear, I feel, and then I want to escape, but it's impossible. My hands and forehead are in a sweat. It's good, clean, clear writing. And that's something I think that we should all be aiming to do. None of these long five-clause sentences that tighten it all up. If it's in a dramatic piece, you want those short, sharp, dramatic statements. I thought I might read you again the piece that I read at the beginning of last week, just to show you again the published piece about Martab's story, When the Taliban Comes. And you can hear that example again of statements that are short and that help to build the drama. Remember, Martab is a character whose family is trying to escape from the Taliban in Afghanistan. She and her mum and her brother and sister are hiding in the back of the truck. Dad's up the front. And they know that if the Taliban find them on the back of the truck, they're going to kill them. So, her little brother and sister are called Soraya and Farah. Two loud bangs sound on the wall between them and the cabin. Martab stiffened, snatched a hand up over her mouth. No sound. Don't make a sound. The signal. A checkpoint. Taliban. She froze. The truck's gears ground slowly down and stopped. She heard the doors open and she pictured her father and the driver getting out. She heard them step away from the truck. then muffled words. She pressed her eyes tightly closed. Farad's hand gripped hers. When you're very scared, her grandfather had said to her once, count backwards from 100. By the time you get to 0, the worrying moment may have passed. 100, 99, 98, 97, 96. Had her grandfather done this when the Taliban smashed through the door of his office and dragged him out? 95, 94, 93. Had he done it when he stood there and heard their accusations? 92, 91, 90. And had he done this when they raised their whips and struck him and then their guns and shot him dead? What number was she up to? Their voices were continuing. Were they arguing? Would the soldiers not let them through? What story was their father telling them? Would they believe him? Would they know of that time when he was taken before? Of her grandfather? Boots clomped around the back of the truck. Stones were kicked aside. Something slapped against the tire. Kick. A swipe from a whip. A shadow passed in front of the narrow slits that let the sliver of sunlight through. Must have felt the breath. Steps and numbers. Which was it again? 89, 88, 87? Soraya stirred. She stretched away from her mother and the tiny bracelet on her wrist scraped against wood. To Mastab it sounded as if wild horses were dragging chains across the bare ground. Her mother felt inside her robe and taking a cube of sugar, pressed it to Soraya's lips. This was the sign of the old. Suck quietly on the sugar and don't make a sound. She passed one each to Farad and Mastab. Even as she rolled the sugar around her mouth, Mastab felt the sound of grains on the teeth was deafening. Surely they could be heard. And I'll stop there. But I just noticed as I was reading that, I talked earlier about using repetition. You might have noticed that in the questions she's asking herself, the rhetorical questions, were they arguing? Would the soldiers not let them? What story they're taking? Would they believe him? There's a constant repetition of those sound of a question, and the word would gets repeated a couple of times. And there's also the sense of her senses, what she's hearing, what she's seeing. And the other thing that I didn't notice anyone did, I think maybe one or two students did. Don't be afraid to use a whole line for one word. I don't know whether you can see it here. Can you zoom in at all? Onto this part here. What you might notice is here that the phrases, checkpoint, Taliban, must have froze. Each of those statements just gets a whole line, and that heightens the dramatic effect of the way the passage looks. And you can do that with your own writing too. You don't have to fill up a whole line. Okay, maybe there might be some questions that someone might like to ask about that writing task. Did anyone have anything that, and the other schools too, please join us here at Sussex and St Michael's and Tamworth. Is there anything about the writing of the task that you felt particularly difficult or that you wanted to ask me a question about? Or?
Well, I think we should school first.
Okay, we'll start with Sussex, shall we?
I thought it was really good because you got to express, and it was kind of challenging because you really had to think about it.
Okay.
Ask the teacher to repeat it.
Can the teacher just repeat that statement because I don't know whether everyone's been able to hear it?
It was challenging because we had to think about what we had to write. It was like, we couldn't just copy it from a book or anything. We had to think for ourselves.
Good. Good. I'm glad you found it challenging. I mean, it's not worth doing if it's not going to challenge you. Famous last words. Anyone else from Sussex?
That's St Michael's.
Oh, St Michael's, is it?
Yeah.
Sorry. Anyone else there?
We'll
Try Sussex? Sussex. We haven't lost you, have we?
No.
Hello.
Oh, we're here. We're here. One of the questions we have is there's a tendency to want to conclude the scene, and whether you recommend that we do that or leave it open-ended.
For this particular task, it didn't really matter because we were just writing one scene, and it would depend very much on where it fitted in a story as to the extent you would have to finish it off. Okay? I mean, in the particular chapter I was reading the extract from, that isn't the end of the chapter, because they then go on to be, the truck starts again and they drive on. So you don't actually have to finish the scene, although because the drama of the scene is the period when the Taliban are questioning the father and the kids and the mother are stuck inside, the moment the truck starts up again, that is a logical conclusion of that scene. And the events that happen afterwards are still in the chapter, but they produce another scene. So really there was no instruction that they had to finish that scene. I was quite happy if they left it open-ended. Does that answer your question?
Yes, that was great. Thank you.
And any comments from how the students felt about it?
Yes, we've got one comment. Kyle.
I was hard, but it was a fun task.
Sorry, could you repeat that, Carl?
Hard, but it was a fun task.
It's hard, but it's fun.
That's good. That's good. Thank you. Thank you. And tell me, while Safadim is there, are you accustomed to writing just a scene, or do you always feel you have to write a whole story?
Sometimes I feel like I have to write a whole story because it doesn't really make sense when you finish it off straight away.
Fair enough. Fair enough. But sometimes writing a whole story can take so long and it gets quite difficult, and maybe it's good practice to just write, and occasionally to just write one scene and see how that fits. What would be also fun would be to write a scene, take that scene, and everybody in the group takes the scene and writes what happens next. And it'd be interesting to see how differently each person would approach that. Do we have anyone in Tamworth who'd like to make a comment?
It was because you couldn't write the whole story, you could only write the dramatic scene.
And how did that make you feel?
How did it make you feel? Good.
So you didn't have to spend the whole time working out what happened there?
It was very challenging. Challenging.
Oh, good.
It was challenging.
Thank you. Yeah. Okay, we're going to move on now. I'm happy to ask if anyone at Gummy Bay would like to make a comment. Is there any comments here from the groups that have done the exercise? Big voice?
It was,
Maybe you could stand up and face the microphone so it gets heard.
Microphone's up there.
Oh. Big voice, go.
it was very hard and fun to do, and it felt like I was doing a real story.
You felt like you're doing a real story?
Yeah.
Well, it kind of encapsulates the most dramatic phase of the story, doesn't it? Yeah? Did you want to say something, Brianna?
I thought it was really difficult to stop at one point and just do a dramatic scene, because my first copy was about 3 pages, and I had to cut it down to make it dramatic.
That's an interesting point. Brianna's just saying how originally she wrote 3 pages and it was really hard to cut it down. Sometimes I think one of the problems when we get writing is we have so many different ideas and we don't have any discipline to sort of channel that into one short piece. It's a good exercise. You know, some competitions say write a story in 50 words, no more. So then you've got to think really hard about which 50 words we'll use and how you convey the idea of the story, the character and the event by just using that many words. Might be a good idea for teachers who've got kids who want to write 50 pages, make them write 50 words instead. That's an exercise for you, Brianna. Okay. Anyone else here at Gardner Bay want to say something? Yeah, I think we've got time then. If anyone would like to ask any questions about anything to do with writing, with any of the books that I've done, and maybe your own reading. Yep.
What would be one of the most favourite books you've written?
Question was, and from a student here at Gumea, what would be one of the favourite books that I've written? And whenever writers, and I'm not the only one who says this, whenever writers are asked what's their favourite book that they've written, they usually answer they don't have a favourite, but it's like asking them which of their children is their favourite. And I feel the same way, except it's always good to be you're always feeling very attached to the last thing you've written. And so I've just finished a novel. It's just been edited and it will be published next year. And so I'm anxious to see how that goes. And I feel very concerned about it, a bit like when your child leaves home or something and you're not quite sure how the world's going to see it. So I'm a bit attached to that one. But also I've just launched a new picture book called Look, a Book. And it's just gone out into schools and shops. And so I'm feeling a bit anxious about that one too, how people will receive that. And I'm very pleased with it. Have we got questions from any of the other schools?
Try Sussex.
Should we try Sussex?
Yes.
Sorry, who have we got there?
Oh, that's
That's Tamworth. Hi Tamworth, have we got a question there? Yeah.
How many books have you written?
I've published 40 books. 40 books. Roughly 50-50 novels and picture books. Anything else from Tamworth before we go off to someone else?
Where do you get your ideas?
Where do you get your ideas from? It's a terrific question.
Yes.
Where do you get ideas from when you write a story?
My brain.
And how do you think they get into your brain? If you think about it, we all write.
Experiences?
Excellent. Same for me. Whenever I ask people where they get their ideas from, they say things like from my brain or from my imagination. But something has to get into your brain in the first place, or feed your imagination. And it's usually experiences. Maybe kids here at Gymea can tell me what other things might. Where else do you get ideas from?
Have dreams.
From your dreams. And if you look at the book, The Great Bear, that was a dream.
Other books?
Other books. I think other books are a fantastic source of ideas. You don't take the whole book. You just take a bit of an idea that might be in that book, and then you develop it your own way.
Like TV shows.
Yeah, TV shows and films. They feed your imagination all the time. As does artwork, the stories you hear other people tell. Different ideas come from all kinds of places.
The things around you.
Yeah, everything around you. Everything around you. What about people at St Michael's? You got any questions from there? It's on.
Do any of your books relate to your childhood?
Do any of my books relate to my childhood? If you look at my first book, which might be in your library, it's called Eleanor Elizabeth, and it's based on a family that moves from one part of New South Wales out into the western regions, which is a completely different kind of area. And that's what I did when I was in Year 4. My family moved from the mountains up in the northern part of New South Wales out to the western region. So that definitely became an idea for the story, but everything which happens in the story is fiction. Okay? And sometimes I think when I write a story, the ideas that the things that happen to the kids in my story might also have been something similar to something that happened to me. I wrote a book for kids in junior high school called Love Me, Love Me Not. It's all about first love, kids in Year 8. And all the ideas in that came from me or from my friends. Getting a crush on someone, having someone have a crush on you, having a crush on your best friend, all kinds of good stuff like that. So yeah, I write about things that happen in the family all the time. Anyone else at St Michael's?
Where do you get your motivation from?
Motivation.
Yeah. It's actually, I find it's really good fun to try and make up a story. If I get a bit of an idea, then I can't let it go until I've worked out a way to write it as a story that is good enough to publish. I also have lots of friends who are writers and illustrators, and you know, knowing that they're doing good work makes me inspired to do good work too. I read lots of terrific writers, and that inspires me to keep writing well myself. It's a fantastic way to live your life, creating stuff that you know nobody else has ever written before. Much better than going out and doing a different job. For me, anyway. Anyone else at St Michael's?
Yes. Chris? Harry?
What inspired you to be an author?
What inspired me to be an author? A little bit like the question about motivation. I used to love reading when I was a kid, and as an adult I still do. And I think it's seeing what other people have written makes me feel challenged to write something myself that I can be proud of. I think that's it. Plus I don't want to go out and work for anyone else. And there's another hand I can see up at St Michael's.
Are you currently writing a book?
Well, I've just finished writing this new novel which will come out next year called Red. And I'm thinking, what am I going to do next? And I've got a couple of different ideas. And one is to write a series about a little girl called Cleo, who is very imaginative. Another one is an idea to maybe write a story about a little boy who, at school, in primary school, learns all about environmentalism and the global warming and things, goes home and tries to convince his parents to change all the things that they do and how they live. But they don't want to change. But one of those two ideas will probably get developed soon.
All right. I'm going to shuffle over here. We've run out of time, I'm afraid. I hope you've enjoyed hearing Libby speak. We're very, very lucky to have her do this and to be able to speak with a couple of hundred students at the one time. Can everyone please give Libby a wave and a clap from their schools? We can see you.
It's been a terrific audience to work with.
Okay, now teachers, if you can do me a favour, can you email through to Peter, to Stephen, your feedback on this session so that can potentially give the Primary English Teachers Association some information on how, or if we can do something like this again, and if you would like to do something like this again, something that the students got. I know that the quality of work from our school was much better than it usually would be because they are presenting it to an audience. So that will definitely be one of the feedback points that we give to this project. A special well done and thank you to St Michael's. You got it working and it was working, so well done and well persevered, I suppose. And again, St Michael's, if you need any help in the future, please give me a call or email me. And we hope you have a good afternoon. One last wave to Libby as we say goodbye.